hit the recording.
Okay.
Um, Great. So we're already off and running here, folks. We are blessed to have Martin Bamford with us today. I've only got to know Martin very recently. He's got a plethora of experience and interesting elements to his life so far. I don't know how old he is or even young he is, but he just got this zest, and hopefully we're going to extract some of that information from him today. Martin's a chartered financial planner. He runs his own practice. He's a YouTuber, podcaster. He's the author of 3 books, would you believe? He's a founder of a creative digital media agency. I've used the word digital, Martin. You might not. It might not be a digital media agency only. Media agency, I'll call it. He's got his two. So he runs 2 businesses, lots of books, adds value left, right, and center, and you might be um, you might be led to believe that he's a single guy having getting all this under his belt, but it's not. He's married. He's a father to 3 children, and apart from his busy business life, he's a passionate photographer. He's often injured in ultra distance, ultra marathons, and a slightly crazy open water swimmer. So I'm hoping that I've sort of found a brother from another mother here. Um, but welcome, Martin. It's really nice to
Thanks,
have you,
Ben.
buddy.
What an introduction. Yeah, lots to explore after that. But
Boom.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go. um, but I really think what's important about that introduction is for people to just position in their minds, hey, this is an interview to really pay attention to. Actually, here's a guy got the same number of hours per day that everybody else has, but it's really doing life on his terms right now. And not that everyone needs to be perfect, not that everyone needs to be like Martin. And I always say in these interviews, if the listener can just take one thing away to do differently in their lives and give their best shot at actually implementing that one thing, then that's enough. It's not trying to
mm,
create carbon copies of anyone, just looking at how different men, different dads are doing things, and just pick and choose what you can and can't do. So just hello, good morning, Martin.
hello and good morning.
um so, can you just tell us roughly where you live, Martin, and just give us a bit of background to your story?
Yeah, no worries. So I live in Surrey. So we
Mm,
actually live on the Surrey-West Sussex border, so in a fairly sort of nice rural part of Surrey, which has been a blessing during the lockdown because it means I can walk out the front door and within 5 minutes being, miles and miles of footpaths through ancient woodland and not see another soul for, hours of walking, which is fantastic. So we've been very, very blessed. We live in what's often called the largest village in England, although I think there's 11 or 12 other places that make the same claim. So
mm-mm.
it's a village called Cranley. And I've been here, since my childhood. Born in the West Midlands, family in Bristol, lived in Gloucester for a bit, and then we moved to Surrey when I was young. So my dad moved here for work in the city, and haven't really left since. I mean, been off to
Mm.
university and things, and had to move out after university of this village because it's a bit too expensive for a graduate to live here, and then ended up coming back because this is where the family is. This is where my business is, and yeah, it's a fantastic place to live, fantastic place to raise kids.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, I've been doing unearthing some information about you, and it's all just great stuff. You were a bouncer and a cadet in your younger life, and you can is it
Gosh.
you can eject most regardless of the weight people out of a building. Is that correct?
Haven't tried it for a while, but yeah, this was a student job, and I guess coming on to sort of my childhood and the work ethic I've always had. I had jobs from a fairly young age, paper rounds, washing up in the French restaurant, working in the local garden centre, and when I went off to university, I saw this job advert come up, and they were looking for, I think they called them, what they called them, security assistants or something, bouncers effectively in the student union facilities in the bar and the club, and it looked like quite good fun. I'd done a bit of kickboxing growing up, and I'm a fairly tall guy, 6'1", so I don't sort of worry about handling other people, and it was nice to have that training and to work as a team, to learn how to look after drunk people. The secret is here, Ben, if someone's drunk and you're sober, it's not actually that hard to deal with them. Um,
Thank you. That's yes, of course. A sober guy dealing with a drunk guy, it doesn't matter. The sober guy is always going to win, right?
you have a bit of an advantage, yeah.
um, so, um, And Martin, you haven't drunk either for 17 years. That
No.
resonated with me. Not that I think everyone shouldn't drink. It's personal choice, but you literally describe it with the same words as I do. The hangover was never worth the buzz that you got from alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always had that feeling. So this was in my fairly early 20s, when I sort of had this moment of realization that I was wasting a lot of my time, particularly at the weekends, lying in bed feeling pretty grotty, or yeah, managing to get out of bed but still feeling pretty grotty. And yeah, I had some great nights out, but there's so much I wanted to do, particularly
Mm,
during my 20s, and even now. So I'm 41 now. Um, I always want to be doing things. I never want to be sitting still. There's always things I want to tick off and do and enjoy and experience. So, yeah, hangover's just not really worth it. So haven't touched a drop of alcohol, as you say, for about, I think, about 17, 18 years now.
amazing. You really strike me as somebody who is not work shy. You even the look on your face says, "I'm ready."
I'm a workaholic. I think that's okay. Though. I don't sort of see any shame associated with that.
Mm,
And my wife knew that when she met me. She knew what she was getting into.
mm,
So, it's I get a buzz out of it. I get a buzz out of achieving things and creating things. Yeah, whether that's on the personal finance side of things, so my role as a chartered financial planner, or with my creative agency, and it is mostly digital stuff we do, but making stuff, creating stuff, and making a dent on the planet effectively, leaving a mark as I do things.
mm, mm. Making a dent on the planet, doing the best you can to leave this place better than how you found it, right? And you
Yeah,
don't need to
yeah.
change everyone on the planet. You just want to change your little piece of the pie, so to speak. Yeah, what an inspiration you are, Martin. So, can you just sort of? I'll probably dip in and out of the past. Can you just give us a rundown of what Martin's week looks like now? Because you've got so much going on. What's a
Yeah.
typical week in Martin's life at the minute?
So, I mean, work wise, I have those two hats. So, I'm a director of a very successful firm of chartered financial planners. It's the family business. So, my
Right.
mum and dad started that back in 1994. When I left uni back in 2000, I'd studied business and finance, but I still didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And I probably inevitably fell into that role of working for insurance companies, selling investment products, and then joined the family business a few years later and worked my way up through the ranks, doing admin and research, becoming an advisor, becoming a director. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've stepped away from the day-to-day operations of that business. So I still have a role there. I'm responsible for looking after the investments, probably about £500 million of worth of client investments there, and I'm responsible for all the marketing and communications. But I don't any longer advise clients on a day-to-day basis because it wasn't something I was getting a huge amount of enjoyment out of. And I wanted to do other things. So 3 years ago or so, I set up this marketing agency because I'm passionate about creating things. I'm passionate about creative digital marketing. And I was doing lots of it for my business, my family business, Informed Choice. And I was getting lots of other financial planners saying to me, well, love what you're doing here. Could you do something similar for us?
Mm,
So started that business, I say, about 3 years ago. And it's probably where I spend most of my time each week, albeit now in my shed working from home because of the pandemic. But whether that's writing blogs for people, creating, editing videos and podcasts, social media management, so yeah, all sorts of things. And then on top of that, I'm trying to develop my own brand, as it were. So my YouTube channel and my own podcast, my own blog website and things. And then I'm building a series of online courses to follow that. So it keeps me busy, and that's the work bit. Family bit. So I'm married to Becky, who's a forest school teacher. So she's not currently teaching. We made the decision for her to stop teaching last September because we realised this pandemic wasn't going away anytime soon, and actually with the kids being home and with this requirement for home learning, it was best that she spent her time with them and had that opportunity to do so. So that turned out to be the right call. Um, Her two children, so my stepchildren who live with us, who are 9 and 12, and then my eldest daughter from my first marriage, who lives 10 miles down the road with her mum. And yeah, we have a great relationship still. Spoke to her on the phone, my ex-wife on the phone this morning. Spoke to my daughter on the phone this morning, and yeah, it's we see each other often. It all works. It's that lovely sort of modern blended family approach.
brilliant. We do a lot of marriage work here, and what one outcome obviously is inevitably divorce. People had
Mm.
either gotten the support they need a bit too late, or it was just they were just wanting to part company. It just kind of run
Yeah.
its course. And so we see our role as not forcing marriage to stay together, but how can two people remain connected, on the same page enough to continue to have some kind of relationship, and respect and appreciation for
Yeah.
each other, particularly when kids are involved, because they're setting an example in whatever we are setting an example in whatever we do as dads and parents, aren't we,
Mm.
Martin? So
100%, yeah,
it,
yeah,
it,
and there's ways of doing it. You don't have to go through a divorce and make it look like you see on TV or read about in the press. You can divorce on good terms, and lots of our friends, yeah, sort of held us up as an example of how to do it well at the time. And we had our moments. We didn't like each other a lot of the time, I'm sure, but you don't have to go into it, feeling anger against the other person and trying to screw them out of every single penny. You do it in a way that's right, particularly when there's kids involved. And we had a daughter, we have a daughter together, we co-parent. Our daughter has now formally come out of school, so she's now following a sort of homeschooling, unschooling approach. So we're really having to work quite closely together, the two of us, to make that a success. Work as a team. So it doesn't work if you hate each other and sort of scream at each other every time you see each other. So there's different ways of doing it.
Yeah, we homeschool all three of ours now.
Right.
We were just about to homeschool our eldest when the pandemic kicked in, or lockdown kicked in for the first
Yeah.
time. And yeah, Kerry was way more keen on it than me. She heads up almost 100% of the responsibility for that. Just sort of wheels me in whenever she needs, a
Yeah.
shelf putting up or something, making me useful in the home. Um, but that was my approach. Was I always almost wanted to just repeat what was going on, academically at school. In the home, that was my
Mm,
limited view of it at the time.
mm,
And Kerry's just opened me up to this idea of they need to be unschooled first. And I'm thinking, what
yeah.
you know what is that? And of course, just getting out of that systemized, approach to how we've raised her so far. And so yeah, it took me a while to get my head around. And when you're going through that process, it's just odd, because I came through the absolute stock standard school route. and
Yeah.
and we're it's great that we're asking new questions as parents, because our kids are going to be asked to solve different problems that we've
Mm.
created for them, aren't they? So there's going to be so much asked of this next generation. It's just great to
Yeah,
hear.
and I've always been quite down on the education system. I think it's fair to say. So, and I'm fairly academically challenged. I didn't do very well at school or college. I ended up at university by a very tortuous route of going to a local technical college first and getting a high national diploma and then going to top it up to get a degree. So, until I started applying education in the real world, in the world of work, and then studying to become a chartered financial planner and a fellow of the Personal Finance Society, which required a lot of study, a lot of exams. It didn't really click and resonate with me, the education system. And now seeing it as a parent, with three kids going through it at different stages, and also having that experience of my wife Becky as a teacher, and she's been through a couple of Ofsted inspections in the past few years, so seeing that experience too, I I just think it's not entirely broken, the education system, the formal education system, but it's got so much room for improvement, and
Mm,
I don't think it's necessarily fit for purpose given how the future is going to look in the world of work. Yeah, people are not going to leave school in the future and go into a typical 9 to 5 that they stick at for 40 years. That just doesn't happen anymore.
mm,
So we're not necessarily giving kids in school today the right toolkit to go out there and create a portfolio career, to be entrepreneurial, to be self-starters. And I was very comfortable. It was our daughter who came to us with the idea of dropping out of school and becoming unschooled, and I was immediately receptive to it because she's probably got it from me. To be fair, probably it's probably rubbed off on her over the years, but and then particularly during the pandemic, seeing the quality of some of this remote learning that's taking place. I mean, my middle daughter this morning was doing an hour and a half of guided reading. So they're on a Teams call and they're all reading their own books, and occasionally the teacher will pop up and say, "Well, what page are you on?" And the first time I saw her doing that, I was like, what are you doing? Why? What's the point in this? But of course, it's about catering for the lowest common denominator and making sure the kids are safe. So it's a welfare thing. It's not about education at the moment. And
mm.
I think that was just an eye opener as well for me. But yeah, it's fascinating times.
I just love that about it. And we can, we've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So
Mm,
Kerry's got three children to manage, and we understand them really well. So we can have even more of an input on
yeah.
tailoring with them their input as well as to what are their aspirations, what are they interested in right now, what do they want to learn more about. So um and what I'm in danger. I just want to put not almost a caveat, a disclaimer here that Martin and I, Martin and I are on the very same page. It sounds like with this, and we've taken a long time to research it, and it's not for everybody. We're
Yeah.
not wanting to bash anyone on the head who just is turned off by this part of the interview. That's absolutely okay. Just wanted to drop that in there. So thank you, Martin. So far, I'm going to move towards relationship now. We'll get onto money at some point, and
Mm.
let's start there. Can you share with us what this opening season is looking at dads and their relationship with money, etc. Can you share with us how your relationship with money has changed, what your early financial messages as a kid were like, what that sounded like, the impact that had on you? Can you take us a walk through that?
Yeah, and so I'm growing up. Earliest memories of money, I guess. I mean, it comes from my parents. They were self-employed at a fairly early time in my life. So we moved to Surrey, and my dad took a job, an employed role in the city for a big insurance company as a marketing director. But then after a few years, he stepped away from that and set up his own business with two business partners. So I guess my earliest memories of money, I remember him being employed, but I certainly remember him starting that business, and it was a struggle. Those early years of starting a business from scratch, particularly in the 80s.
Mm,
This isn't like today when you can just go on there and pop up a website and say I'm doing this now. This was really building a business. It was picking up the phone and building clients that way. But there were tough years, and I remember in those early years of them starting the business, we weren't well off as a family. It was a real treat occasionally to be taken to McDonald's for a McDonald's takeaway, and that was sort of the highlight of the year almost in terms of monetary treats. We'd holiday mostly either camping in France or down in Devon, so there were no sort of glamorous foreign holidays taking place. And I guess I was always very exposed to that subject of money, investments, pensions, because it was dinner table conversation.
right.
They were running a business together. We were hearing about the ins and outs of his days, and he was teaching us stuff. He was teaching us about shares and investing and tax wrappers and that sort of thing. So as a young teenager, I could tell people about allowances for what ISAs are now, but what used to be things called TESAs and PEPs. And it was dinner table conversation. So I was always very exposed to it.
Mm. And when you hit teen years and starting to make your own kind of money, what what were the rules of engagement with money at that point, Martin? When you started to have
Um,
your own stuff? Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there are any really strict rules around it. So I did, as I mentioned earlier, I had a paper round growing up. I was washing dishes in a French restaurant, etc. And I enjoyed the exchange of hard work, and it was always hard work. The paper round was miserable. I'm not a morning person, so getting up early and riding around on my bike in the freezing cold and not being able to find the houses to deliver to because there were new ones added to the route, that was always fairly miserable. But there was something very satisfying about getting that pay packet at the end of the day or the end of a week. And likewise, washing up in a French restaurant, I used to get the worst sort of sore hands from having my sort of hands dipped in this red hot detergent filled water all the time. And it was late nights, and I remember occasionally sort of almost falling asleep cycling home in the dark. So I was that exhausted at the end of the day, but it was good money at my age then. I think I earned £5 an hour as a
Mm.
teenager, which was wow, incredible. And it allowed me to save up. I worked in a garden centre, miserable thing to do again, hot in the summer, getting pricked by rose thorns when I was pruning, etc., and then working in a kitchen. So again, hot and stroppy customers and everything else. But it was decent money, and I was able to save up and buy my first car when I turned 17. And I think that was a really good outcome because it gave me that freedom, to sort of jump in a car. It was bad in the sense that it meant that at college I wasn't as motivated to stay in college. I was more interested in getting in the car and going off to the local town, going shopping and stuff. But I think it's about work ethic, and I saw that from my parents. I saw how hard they worked to get this business off the ground, to start their own business, which was became successful very quickly once they'd got over that initial hump. And I saw that direct correlation between hard work and success, and it taught me a lot.
That's such a helpful piece of information because I know some people would have listened to how family business was already established and claim that you had some easy ride. What I'm choosing to hear from everything you're sharing, Martin, is that you just nailed it. The work ethic, it sounds to me you won't be outdone for working hard, right? And
No.
your parents weren't lining your pockets with money and giving you an easy ride. We learn by osmosis. Just you just almost copy and paste what they do. They work
Mm,
really hard, okay? And we went without and we sacrificed, and it was an important choice for our family at that time. And so, talking about business, talking about money around the dinner table, rather than another environment where the dad's complaining about how hard life is and complaining about his boss and
mm,
how he hasn't got any choices. And I'm sure there are going to be some listeners that I'm not criticizing any listeners that are in that situation right now. Just what's coming out of this for me is that choice of perspective, that choice of how you look at something. And you just strike me as somebody who is looking at the same object as most other people and saying, there's another way, there's a different way. I need to work hard to see that different way and transform that into something else. But
yeah.
do those words resonate with you?
Yeah, and I've faced criticism lots of times over the last 20 years or so, which is that you joined the family business and it was all handed to you on a silver platter, and you can take that on and you can accept that that's someone else's point of view, and it's not the reality. You know how hard you've worked to do what you've done. The success of our family business, which is going to turn over £2 million plus this year, that is a team effort. It's not
Mm,
because of my hard work. It's not because of my dad's hard work. It's because of all of our hard work. Everyone in the team has worked so hard consistently over a period of years to get to where it is today. And we've overcome challenges. We've had huge unexpected bills. We've had staff that haven't turned out to be the right people and have left unexpectedly. It's all sorts of challenges. It's running a business. It's what it's
mm,
like. But I think whenever you hear something like that from someone else, it's usually because of their own learned experience. So it's their shortcoming rather than your own. And it's whether you choose to sort of take that on and or just shrug it off and ignore it and move on. And I think I've become so thick-skinned over the last sort of 20 years of doing this that actually the best way is just to accept that people have their failings, they have their shortcomings.
And can we just go there for a moment, Mark? I love how these interviews just start to flow. I've written down mistakes, right? Because right now I've got this glowing man of an individual in front of me, and I'm thinking, how can I be more like this guy? And
Oh, don't.
and what I'd like for me and the audience is, I'd love to hear about what mistakes you've made. Let's name a business mistake and a mistake in your previous marriage, because that's my topic as well,
Yep.
and how you dealt with that mistake, the impact it had on you, how you dealt with it, how you overcame it, and particularly the impact it had on you. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a deeply flawed individual. I can talk about my achievements and I can talk about success and everything else, but I have more shortcomings than I can list, and I'm very happy and open to admit that. Business wise, we've been through. I always sort of view it as a learning experience. We've been through so many things in our business where we haven't failed, but we've learnt from it, and we've hopefully done it better the next time. Picking the wrong people to work for you, I think, is probably the biggest learning experience I've been through. We've picked people that have turned out to be wholly unsuitable.
Mm-hmm.
Often because examples, but often because they weren't emotionally stable, and you bring a lot of their personal drama into your business. And we're a family business, and whilst we've become a lot bigger, and we're now a team of 16 in that business, we still treat it like a large extended family.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you bring someone into that family who has serious issues going on outside of the workplace, and they bring that in, you're changing a dynamic and creating serious problems. So we've certainly learned a lot more about better hiring decisions, and really taking the time to understand who you're bringing in, and making sure you're confident that bringing them in isn't going to upset the boat and cause real issues. I mean, you asked about mistakes in the first marriage. We were both young. I think that the fundamental mistake there was we were very different people and heading in different directions in our lives and had different priorities, different values.
Mm,
And my mistake, and I'll own it and sort of take it on myself, was I just expected that to converge and align over time automatically without
mm,
having to put the work in, without having to have sort of honest, open conversations about it. I could see the differences. I could see we had different values and different experiences, and we culturally different as well. So my first wife was South African, so there was a big cultural difference there, and I just expected it all to magically come right. And actually, things don't change by magic,
mm.
as I quickly learned experience. So it's learning experiences. You win some, you learn some.
And were you was there in at the point in time where you decided this has to change? How did you deal with the inevitable fear that came up around? I don't know who instigated that. It might have been a joint decision, but the impact on you. You had one child from that marriage,
Yeah, she was very young, so she was only 1.5, 2 years old. So there
and
wasn't a direct impact in terms of understanding what was going on. I don't think at the time.
and was that anything you wrestled with? Is the consequences of us following through with this breakup? How was that for you?
Pretty horrible, for at least good 2 or 3 years at the start of it, and trying to get to grips with this sort of new reality and feeling like a failure, not just a failure as a husband, but a failure as a father, because I was letting down not just my wife but also my daughter, and
Mm,
it's a huge thing to get over. My parents are still married. Married after I don't know how many years. I'll probably make a mistake if I say it. 40+ years anyway, and no marriage is perfect. I understand that, but I was the first person in our family to get divorced, and that as well is a big thing. It's a big.
mm,
It's not as much of a stigma as it is was a generation ago, certainly, because lots of people get divorced. I think 1 in 3, almost 1 in 2 marriages now end in divorce, but it's still a huge identity, part of my identity, that in my mid 20s I was divorced, with a young child, and having lots of concerns about the impact of that on my life, on her life, and what that would look like. So it took a while to wrestle with and to come to terms with.
and did you have any support, Martin? Have you got people that you confide in? Who's the go to for you? Have you got a faith of some kind? Where's your go to?
No, it's friends and family. My friends, rallied around me, and I'd sort of realised at the time I had, in those few years of marriage, had almost excluded them, as I think newly married people often do.
Mm,
You focus so much on the marriage and spend so much time with your wife that the mates sort of go on the back shelf. Particularly as I'd given up drinking a few years earlier, so they were still very much into going out every weekend, and I just wasn't part of that scene anymore. So, but yeah, they were very quick to rally around again, and had a good support team. And I have my family. We're a close family. So as well as working with my parents, I also work with my sister, my younger sister. So she lives in the same village. We work in the same business together, and having that support mechanism helps, particularly when you have a very young child that you're now raising as a single parent, or co-parenting at least. But yeah, when you have time with her, you're a single parent. So having that support was very important.
yeah, brilliant. It's such an element of how to get through a challenging situation well, and not always are we in control of what challenging situations we're going to be confronted with, but just having someone to talk to, having someone to open up to, because almost this idea of being alone, wanting to be separate, wanting to deal with it ourselves, just never tends to be the happiest way through a difficult time. And
Mm.
shame, embarrassment, guilt are all kind of emotional features that can keep us locked away, and it's certainly not what we recommend here.
No.
So let's again just tag into money for a little bit, Martin. So what specific money habits do you say are really important for people to have
I think
in
I
in
think
their
that
in their personal
yeah.
financial management? Yeah.
I would say the big one, which is so often overlooked, is about aligning what you want to do in life, how you want to spend your time, where you want to get to with money. Because I think, and we see this all the time with clients when we've advised clients, which is money is seen as this separate entity. And it's seen as a standalone thing, and we talk about budgeting, and we talk about the value in our bank accounts and our investments, our ISAs, our pensions, and it's making that linkage between the money we have and what it can actually do for us. It's taken me a long time, even having gone through all the exams and having practiced doing this and having given advice to hundreds of clients over the years. It's taken me a long time to land on this, and this is, I think, there's different types of wealth, and actually the wealth that we all focus on, which is about money in the bank, and often about status, our job titles, the type of work we do. That's not the bit that really matters. The bit that really matters, the type of wealth that really matters, is about two things. It's about time and flexibility, and it's about our health. And we often sacrifice time and flexibility and health to get money in the bank and to get status. Whereas actually the happiness, the satisfaction comes from having the freedom to do all the things we want to do, having a good health, a state of health, so we can enjoy doing those things and we can enjoy our family, and we can set a good example to our family, rather than working all hours and trying to climb the slippery pole and become a CEO and earn a six-figure salary. It helps to have that in place to achieve the other things, but only if it's in a sustainable way that allows you to have freedom and flexibility.
What a great message. Yeah, absolutely. Raised and conditioned in a society where you are what you do, you are what you earn, you are what other
Mm,
people say about you, and what you're sharing here is, it should come with what life do you want to build, and let that be the leader, rather than how much money do I want to have in the bank and what returns am I making on XYZ investments. Use money as a tool that's in unity with
mm,
living the life that I actually want to live. um Obviously counseling couples here, it just never ceases to amaze me, how different a page they are on financially.
mm,
Most, and it's so common that they can say how much they've got coming in to the household. They can name very roughly or very accurately that figure, but in terms of where that money's going and how they're using that money, it's all, they're almost bewildered. So
yeah.
what I guess word I'm adding here is be very intentional about what kind of life do we want to live, how much does that cost, how are we going to manage the money that comes in. And can you just share, you've got so much experience of dealing with people and their money habits, Martin. what what how can people do that better? How can people develop really helpful habits around the way they manage money?
I think it's about that's that word you just used, which I'm a big fan of, which is intentional. And if you allow these things to happen by accident, they're unlikely to get you to where you want to get to. So being on the same page with your significant other, understanding what shared life goals you have, and then how money facilitates you getting there. I mean, habits wise, it's boring stuff and it's simple stuff, but money is inherently simple. It's about budgeting. It's about making sure that you bring in more than goes out each month. So living within your means, only buying stuff that you can actually afford to buy, not buying stuff just because you want it and it's easy to get credit to get hold of it. So living within your means because of budgeting and keeping the budget simple. You don't need to go into the pounds and pence for each thing. You just keep it broad terms. But as long as each month you're spending less than you earn, you're in a good place. It's about covering all of your weaknesses. So, and that comes in two forms. In particular, as a parent or as a husband, you want to make sure that if a catastrophe happens, death, serious illness or disability, critical illness, that you have the financial resources in place to make sure your family are not in serious financial difficulty. So
Mm-hmm.
that's life assurance, it's critical illness cover, it's income protection insurance. And it's also about having a cash safety net. And we've seen this so well illustrated during the pandemic, which is jobs and income. It's a fragile thing. Businesses can be closed down by the government overnight. I don't think anyone had realised that was a possibility before. And having to rely on this safety net offered by the Chancellor, that's great if you qualify, but there's 3 million or so people in the UK now who are excluded from those forms of support, whether it's furlough or the self-employed income support scheme. So you have to have your own support
Mm-hmm.
scheme in place, and that's cash savings. And then it's about investing for the future. It's about remembering that at some point in your life, the money is going to have to work for you rather than you working for the money. So it's putting money aside in investments in your pension pot. So when that day comes, and a lot of people have this weird desire to continue working forever. And some people will be able to work well past conventional retirement ages, but very often you'll have to stop working because your health will fail, or the work won't be available, there'll be an absence of work available to do, or you have to care for somebody else. So having that money invested for the future, which you can then get working for you rather than you working for it, I think is key to it. But it's all fairly simple stuff. And I can say it's simple stuff because I live and breathe this, but as long as you live within your means, you protect yourself with protection and cash buffers, and you invest for the future, you're doing better than 99% of people out there.
I I absolutely am guilty of, before, because I've lost lots of money as well, of just living in a way where it said, when I've got enough money coming in, I'll save more money. Or for
Mm,
me, it was even worse. It was, I'll save some. When I get
yeah.
more and hey, that's a way to increase the amount of money you have. Is increase the amount coming in at the top. But
Mm,
I never took care of what was coming out at the bottom, and I was completely guilty of just paycheck to paycheck, money came in, all that money went out. And
mm,
always the excuse of, well, I just feel embarrassed to have to save £5 this month. I just I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'd rather just keep lying and live in that place of denial of, well, when income
mm,
goes up, I will change that. But
yeah.
what I've found is the habit has to change, and the amount of money you're able to put to one side is irrelevant. It's that habit of separating out and paying yourself that money in amongst all
Mm.
of your other expenses that starts to make a huge difference in your financial balance sheet.
Yeah, and if I may at that point, I think it's also worth remembering that tomorrow never comes. So this intention of starting later, as soon as X happens or Y happens, it never arrives. It never unless you start right now today. And I think again the pandemic's a great example of this. If people now start thinking back to a year ago when the first lockdown started, and so many people I spoke to had these wonderful intentions. Well, I'm going to use this time creatively. I'm going to write my first novel. I'm going to lose 40 pounds and get fit and run a marathon. And they had all these wonderful goals. A year on, ask those people, how are you getting on with those goals that you had a year ago? And they haven't started because there's always something to do on a day-to-day basis that gets in front of those longer-term plans.
Mm.
So realize that all of a sudden you can be looking back a decade or longer and not having made that change, not having started that habit you have to start. If you've always got, when it comes to money, you've just got to start by paying yourself first. Even if it's a relatively small amount, it's what you can afford. And then prioritization of how you're actually spending that money. Becky and I and the kids, we don't live a fairly extravagant lifestyle. I mean, relative to some, it probably would be seen as as fairly extravagant. But when we could, we weren't going on foreign holidays every year. We don't eat out in expensive restaurants. We treat ourselves from time to time, but we align that with our goals and making progress towards other longer term things, and it's a reward for what we're doing well. Um, but I think I see so many people who are living the big life, particularly with social media now, and trying to make the best impression on Instagram and things, and they genuinely can't afford it, and it's their future self paying for this experience they're having today.
Love that. As the adult, we do have the wisdom and opportunity to forecast what's going to happen. Children want it right now, and on that
Yeah.
theme of living in the present moment, I'm an absolute ambassador of that. But it's okay to step out of the present to plan for half an hour what you want your future to look like, then get
Mm.
back to the present
Yeah.
of creating that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was nearly going to hire a luxury jet to walk off at the start of our interview to impress our followers today, but but I can't. I
Don't do
can't.
it.
No, don't do it. But we never see private jets in the Forest of Dean, so I thought better of it. So yeah, top two tips from you then, Martin, is you at some point you have, it doesn't matter the denomination, just start paying yourself first. You just
Mm,
have to, and
mm.
be intentional about how you manage what's coming in. um Perhaps not now, because I imagine you're lightning fast. How much time would you say someone should allocate or could allocate to just doing that weekly balancing and that weekly managing and forecasting, and making adjustments for their budget? How much time per week?
I don't think it's much, and I'm probably guilty of not spending enough time on it personally. But I have a broad understanding. I know that more comes in than goes out, and I think as long as you're aware of that, and you can see that just by looking at your online banking app and seeing the balances, and knowing at the start of each month, what the standing orders are, what your broad budgets are for things like food that are not standing orders. If you're spending 20 minutes a week on it, that's usually sufficient. And then maybe once every year, you can spend a couple of hours looking at the bigger picture and looking at policies and things, and making sure you're getting the best possible terms when you're renewing your insurance policies. That's another big saving opportunity. But I always say to people, if money and investing is your hobby, then you probably need a better hobby. This is not a fun thing to spend time on, as long as you've got the basics in place and you've got lots of it on autopilot. So you've got the direct debits and standing orders going out to the various savings and investment accounts. You've done most of the work for yourself already, and then the weekly check is just making sure you're staying broadly on track.
You're someone I would rank right up there as people doing dadship and doing it well. And half of me expects to have some accountant level answer to the way you manage life. But what I'm just really hearing clear is you just set your intention, you set your focus on how
Mm,
you want life to be and what you want to do, and you just almost, you have to do the appropriate management of it, but using money to support what you want to do rather than focusing on it and making it about the money, as you said earlier on, as being a separate, almost add on, this
Mm,
separate thing over here. How is money going to, like food supports your journey towards becoming a better athlete, Martin?
mm,
Money supports your opportunity to go and race in the ultra marathons wherever you go and race.
yeah,
So how is money going to help me in just changing that relationship from something over there I've just got to pile up and it's just endlessly building and then I'm worth something to, nah, how can money help me today? What have I got to do to really improve that relationship with how I manage it and look at it and use it for our goals and intentions for the future?
yeah.
Thank you, buddy. That's been so helpful. Can you just give us a plug if people have loved this? Where can they go specifically to come and engage a bit more with what you've got going on and Martin's work?
I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment to build up my YouTube channel, so I'd love to see people on YouTube come and subscribe there. So it's youtube.com/informed choice.
Great.
And I try and add a new video there every day. I talk about personal finance, talk about investing, I talk about happiness, and hopefully it's educational stuff and it's based on real experience and real opinions. So yeah, I'd love to see people there.
Great, buddy. Thank you, Martin. I'm sure we'll be doing this again at some point. Have a great
I'd love to. Yeah,
weekend
yeah.
and thanks
Likewise.
for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers,
Cheers.
mate. Bye bye.